Clicking live.
TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D1, and with me now is the Apostate Prophets. How you doing, AP?
I am doing very well, David. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
And I got one question for you. When you were a Muslim, did you think that Muhammad's marriage to Aisha was the most beautiful thing ever, and did it make your heart melt?
Nope. I preferred not to think about it.
That's weird, because according to the videos we'll be watching, it's the most beautiful thing ever. And this is even worse than when I saw Sheikh Yusuf Estes, and he was asked about Muhammad and Aisha, and he goes, if you have a problem with Muhammad and Aisha, do you also have a problem with the story of Romeo and Juliet? Because it's another beautiful love story. And Shakespeare couldn't even dream up a story as beautiful as the story of Muhammad and Aisha. You're talking about a 54-year-old dude banging a 9-year-old girl. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rosy from Rosy's Korner.
So I made a post recently asking which concept made more sense. And it was the concept of one God who is indivisible, no partners, no children, versus three gods who are physically separate, and one dies for 3 days, but there's still one.
Everyone who's watching what Rosy just did, that's called a straw man. She's attacking a position that is not actually a position. It's not actually the position that she's responding to. She is either clueless, which is weird because she claims to be a former Seventh-day Adventist, and Seventh-day Adventists know what the doctrine of the Trinity is. So she is either completely ignorant, that would be a shocker, or she is deliberately misrepresenting the doctrine, whichever that case may be. What we can say is, here she would just be following the pattern laid down in the Quran, where Allah says that the Trinity is made up of God, Jesus, and Mary, who are three separate beings, and they just work together as one, which is the definition of the Trinity according to no one ever, and yet Allah, that's his refutation of the doctrine of the Trinity, as he gets Jesus to deny that that's what he taught. So interesting that she's actually starting off her video like this.
I mean, it's one thing not to know, right? And then another thing to have this completely wrong perception of something, and to basically run with that, to present that as a basis to then build arguments or build some reasoning on it.
Can't figure out. I don't know if she knows that some of what she's saying is horribly wrong. I'm guessing she's just really gullible. So yeah, we'll give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that she doesn't know that she's spouting nonsense for a good part of this video. I actually have to downplay how complicated this is according to Islamic theology, because you have Allah, then you have Allah's speech, which is eternal and can appear as a person.
Yeah.
And they're not going to tell you that Allah breathes out his spirit, who also appears as a person. So there's Allah and his spirit and his word, all of whom are personal agents. They're not going to tell you that, because then you might start wondering, whoa, is our theology really simpler than the Trinity? They also won't tell you that individual chapters of the Quran have their own personalities and will appear to speak at the judgment for you. They won't tell you. So notice it's one Quran, and yet 114 different personalities within the Quran. Assume you're going with the 114 chapter version. They didn't tell you that there's 116 according to Ubay ibn Ka'b and 111 according to Ibn Masud. They didn't tell you. This is all stuff you'll find out in the future. You won't find it out from your guys. You'll never hear it from your scholars. You're not going to hear it from your Dawah heroes. You're only going to hear it from us, and then you're going to get mad at us for saying it, but you'll find out we're right.
The Prophet's marriage with Aisha is probably one of the subjects that's mostly talked about by non-Muslims or mainly Islamophobes.
One of the main arguments, you go back 15 years, 20 years, one of the main arguments for Islam was the amazing, perfect moral character of Muhammad. The amazing, perfect moral character of Muhammad. I could pull, matter of fact, if you want to do something fun, AP, one day we'll just go through the section of Towards Understanding Islam, which was probably the most popular dawah book that they would hand out until a brief illustrated guide to understanding Islam came out. But towards understanding Islam, he just goes page after page after page describing Muhammad. And he is, compared to this giant, all other men of all other times are mere dwarfs by comparison. Like, he's so great. And it's just it's going page after page after page about how perfect he is in every possible way, and he's like a diamond in a pool of coal and stuff like this. It just goes on and on and on. Anyway, that was the argument we were confronted with, and so we responded to it by raising issues about Muhammad. And then we found out you guys really don't have a good defense of a lot of these issues, and so you've got a problem here. You're claiming that Muhammad is this great moral guy. The Quran is claiming that he's the pattern of conduct, and it's actually something that has a real world impact, meaning that child brides are still being married in the Muslim world, and that's bad.
How old would you have liked her to be?
51 years old.
What a question.
How old would you have liked her to be? We would have at least liked her to have gone through puberty and developed physically into a fully grown woman. For me, that's kind of the minimum.
Yeah, I just don't.
You can debate
it to be a little child.
Yeah, you can debate the details. So she's going to go on about 18. Who are you to say 18? I agree. There's something a little bit arbitrary about saying this is some magic number. It's not some magic number. So there's some room for debate on that issue. But I would say, at the very least, just for health concerns and psychological concerns, she should be through puberty and finish the process of puberty. That doesn't mean she starts puberty. Starting puberty is different from completing puberty. Puberty is a transitional period that lasts several years. So finish growing into a woman and not be a little girl anymore.
Ethnocentrism is judging another culture solely by the values and standards of one's own culture. And we are all guilty of this.
It doesn't apply in this case at all. That's it. Because that's not what ethnocentrism, if you want to use it as a, as a criticism, would be applied for. You wouldn't say, in this culture over there, what they do is they torture children from the age of 5 till the age of 10, and also rape them before they become adolescents. Once they're adolescents, they cut off their fingers, and then let them become adults, whereafter they are considered grown up. If we look at that, we don't say, we shouldn't judge that because it's just a different culture. No. That would go for other things like trivial behaviors, things like the way you dress, mm-hmm. the things that you like to eat, and all of that. Mm-hmm. Things like these can't be resolved with a criticism of ethnocentrism.
Yeah. So when we're saying, hey, you shouldn't have sex with a prepubescent girl, that's not just saying, this is our culture here. It's actually harmful. So when you're talking, so notice what she's saying here. If she's saying you're judging another culture by the values and standards of one's own culture, the values and standards that you would have to be saying we are applying here are values like don't do something that is needlessly harmful to a child.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? That we're just shame on us for applying that standard? There are certain things that we say, okay, everyone should agree. And as AP were pointing out, are there any limits to this for you, Rosy? I mean, if you came across a culture that was just, torturing children for fun, and this was a game, and that's what they did, and you say, hey, that's wrong, we need to stop that. You'd say, no, that's their culture. Isn't it? By the way, isn't it amazing, AP? Because this is basically her case throughout this video. Again, she goes in completely different directions for her two videos defending Muhammad's marriage to Aisha. But isn't it amazing that, like, the group that said everyone has to adopt our culture in the entire world? And if you become a Muslim, look at her. Look at how she's dressed already. She has to dress and speak and walk and talk and think like a 7th century Arab, right? This and Islam has rules for everyone else. So the rules are to eventually be applied to the entire world. that these guys, when their position is remotely criticized, suddenly become cultural relativists. Whatever's true for your culture is true for your culture, and what's true for a different culture is true for a different culture. And under no circumstances should you judge another culture. The group that judges other cultures more than any other group in history is the one that appeals to cultural relativism when they're criticized. Isn't that interesting? I find that fascinating, man.
Why do you think that your standards are better?
Why do I think my standards of not penetrating a prepubescent girl are better than a culture that believes it's perfectly acceptable to penetrate prepubescent girls? That's seriously a question.
Yeah,
You
so
think that
there is a distinction that we make, which we both basically just pointed out. But if we're talking about something like child marriage, we're talking about a practice that is not just culturally or by experience understood to be bad. It is scientifically proven that it is harmful. Um, on a medical basis, on a psychological basis, and on many other levels. I mean, just look into the literature. Just look into the history of Islamic scholarship, for example. We recently talked about it. I recently read an article analyzing child marriage in Islamic history and how Islamic scholars have analyzed it. In Islamic history, it was a big issue where Islamic scholars had to advise men on when they should start having sex with their child brides, because it would happen uh, every so often that they would have sex with little girls that they were married to, when the little girls were not ready for marriage physically, which would result in permanently damaging their their organs, their sexual parts, and even their behind, plus
Yeah, there
or
were. Yeah, I'll spell it out. These are called fistulas, where you tear the girl. That's the concern with the prepubescent girl. You can tear the girl, and the Muslims would describe it as two holes becoming one. So you rip the vagina hole down, and it joins with the anus, and the two holes become one hole, and then of course you have permanent problems with sex and the safety of the girl. And of course, the way around that, um, Rosy, is to not have sex with little prepubescent girls. Go ahead,
precisely.
AP.
And on top of that, also, of course, there are also other issues like that. Even if that doesn't happen, for example, which is a horrible thing, and it's actually mentioned several times in Islamic history, in Islamic scholarship, in books. But even if that doesn't happen, uh, there are still immense risk of otherwise harming those girls. Harming them along the way, early pregnancies, which will permanently harm them and hinder their development. Of course, the psychological aspect of it. Child marriages result in significantly less happy individuals when they are adult.
According to the research, basically the younger the girl gets, the more problems arise, not only for the girl but also for her baby if she gets pregnant. But rates of toxemia, sepsis, obstructed and prolonged labor, hemorrhaging, and fistulas all increase significantly for basically the younger the mother is. The babies born to these mothers have higher rates of infant mortality, premature birth, and low birth weight. So when we say, hey, if these are the problems that are associated with getting a girl, having sex with a girl before she's had a chance to develop. So notice, like, obstructed and prolonged labor. Why? Puberty is a process that starts, and over the few years of puberty, the little girl, her hips grow, her birth canal widens. These are things that happen over a period of years. If you just jump in there and have sex with her, and she gets pregnant, and her hips haven't widened, and her birth canal hasn't widened, you get problems. And Rosie, I don't know if you actually know what you're defending here. You're saying that's fine. It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk to the girl to be banging a little girl. It's just worth it. And if you object to it, you're evil for imposing your values on another person's culture. Time of Muhammad, when female infanticide was, you got a daughter, you didn't want her, you throw her out in the desert and let her die. And notice, Muslims will point to that and say, see, Muhammad changed that. It was a common cultural practice. He came and put an end to it. He put an end to that practice. And it's the same way the Christians put an end to the practice in wherever Christianity spread. But notice, if we were to take Rosy seriously here, we'd have to say, shame on Muhammad for stopping female infanticide. Who was he to judge that culture where that was acceptable?
Exactly.
Shame on him. So someone could make a video, Rosy declares Muhammad is evil for judging culture.
So because we are surrounded by a culture that eats pork, we immediately ask, well, why don't they eat pork? Everybody.
Okay, do we understand this point?
Alhamdulillah.
She's saying that some of these issues that would arise with Islam are only an issue because you have a surrounding culture that teaches something about this. If there are two cultures and neither one of them eats dogs, it's not going to be an argument between them about eating dogs. If you have a culture where one of them eats pork but another doesn't eat pork, then you might have this raised as an objection. And so she's going to now. I would put those more in the category of things you were talking about, where you can have cultural relativism. You can have different ways of doing things in different parts of the world. We tend to not eat horses over here. We tend to not eat horses, whereas in other parts of the world they eat horse meat and so on. And so she's going to apply this to Muhammad and Aisha. So just like one culture, maybe this culture doesn't eat pork and this culture does eat pork, and so it becomes an issue. Well, if you have this culture that doesn't believe in having sex with prepubescent girls, and this smaller culture that does believe in having sex with prepubescent girls, well, then it becomes an issue between them, and they start asking questions. Okay, thank you for the enlightenment, Rosy.
So the age 18 was only recently decided as the appropriate age to marry yourself off, right? Now, this is not based on any science or any studies. 18 is all.
Look what she just said. It's not based on any science or any studies. It is.
It is.
It's a collection. It's a collection of scientific. There is a body of scientific and medical data.
Yeah.
That basically says you're better off waiting until girls are completely done with puberty, and then even then it's better to wait a few years beyond that. And it's just, hey, these are the statistics on medical complications of childbirth based on age. And so to say it's not based on anything, no idea what she's talking about there. A little before the show, Sir White Meat messaged me and said, Rob should join because he's been interacting with Rosy for a while. So I said, okay, Rob can jump in whenever he wants. And here you are.
When it comes to going back to the 7th century and judging Muhammad, we are not talking about some random person who lived in the 7th century and who married a little child, right? If it was some random figure who just lived back then, a king, a ruler, or some, random caravan robber, then it would be meaningless for us to sit down and judge him for doing a child marriage or for engaging in slavery or sex slavery. But if it's this specific caravan robber who is supposed to be a moral example for all humankind, for eternity, and who is pointed at as a moral example for all humankind forever, timelessly in the Quran, that we are supposed to maybe sit down and analyze that person's morality, that person's actions, and then see, okay, does this look like this guy is a perfect moral character that all of us should sit down here and admire and adore and follow and copy? Does this look like someone that we in the 21st century, for example, should emulate? If this guy acted in that way in the 7th century in Arabia, if he engaged in child marriage, lied to people, had people assassinated because he was offended, took people's wives away, engaged in slavery, sex slavery, discouraged the freeing of certain slaves, and so on. And no matter if he was better than his time and environment, or if he was exactly on par with his time and environment, if you give that person as a timeless moral example for everybody, then yes, we will sit here and we'll analyze it and we will say, no, we can't accept that person. That's how it goes.
Yeah. So, Rosy, we want to make sure you understand that point, and we want to make sure everyone's watching understands the point. We're not talking about some random person here. Yes, there is this issue of what's called presentism, judging the past by the standards of the present. So you say, look at these dummies 300 years ago. They didn't know this. They're evil and so on. And you know, the problem with that is it's difficult to judge someone by a standard when that's the standard that you are applying may have been completely foreign to them. They have no idea, right? So but notice you can still say they were wrong. You'd give them some leeway because maybe they're in an area where if you're raised to think that is normal, then even if we can say it's wrong and we can say why it's wrong, you might say, okay, if you were raised to think that's okay, yeah, it was still wrong, but we understand. We can cut you some slack. Totally different story with someone that is set up by a religion, by a world religion, as the pattern of conduct, as a timeless pattern of conduct, right? Precisely. Because now you're saying that guy is the standard for not just that time, but for the future.
Precisely.
And so, Rosy, no idea how you're missing this. Who are we to say that this culture is better than this? Your God says this guy is the pattern, superior to others. Precisely. So it's your God and your religion and your prophet are doing exactly what you're mocking and condemning and laughing at in this video, and you don't get it. Why? Because you've already been programmed by a religion to not get it. You've been programmed already to be completely hypocritical and not to be able to understand. And I have no doubt that what I'm telling you right now, notice, if you were talking to someone else and you showed them some tremendous hypocrisy, you would hope the person would go, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, here we are trying to impose one culture on the entire world, and yet we're condemning any culture who tells another culture they're wrong. What's going on here? You would think that. But I strongly suspect you're still not going to get the point or see anything wrong with it. Just like when it's pointed out that the doctrine of the Trinity you responded to at the beginning of your video, it has not been the doctrine of the Trinity for anyone ever and is therefore a straw man. I already strongly suspect that will not bother you even slightly. You already don't care if you're completely misrepresenting Christian theology. You just don't care. And your fans won't care either. If I completely misrepresented Islamic theology, I'm allowed to joke and so on, but if I were serious and I were seriously just completely misrepresenting it, I would get called out by my viewer. My viewers would call me out and say, David, that's not what Islam actually teaches. You need to get that right. You won't get that because it's built into your ideology. It is completely acceptable. Why? Because your God and your prophet did the exact same thing. They completely straw-manned the opposition. This is why Muhammad and Allah say that Jews worship Ezra and call Ezra the son of God. No, they don't. No, they don't. And no, Muslims just don't care. So that's why I can say your fans won't care if you completely misrepresent Christianity, and they won't care if you completely misrepresent Islam, quote fake hadiths, any of that stuff. They just won't care. And I just want you to know that maybe at some point you should ask yourself, why is all of this acceptable in your religion? Why does your religion make people like this? That's an interesting question for us.
In the classical period, Mayan civilization, so 250 AD to about 900 AD, the average age was between 16 and 18 for women.
Average.
Mm-hmm. And anthropologists across the board, we're trying to go back 30, 40,000 years. If you're talking about, say, Aborigine cultures in Australia, right? Aborigines come into Australia about 60,000 years ago. There's a general understanding of the average age, especially for women, again, in that 15, 16-year-old bracket. When we go into, let's just stick with, say, first century Christianity, Roman culture, women in their early 20s are marrying. It's not a common thing for young women to marry. In fact, they're marrying well into like an adolescent, so-called adolescent age. And then you have this Jewish notion that, say, men become complete men at the age of, say, 30. So this thing about going back to the age of 6 and 9 in the Quran and the Islamic context is just anthropologically, it's a question that I still can't answer. Like, why does it emerge as this total like outlier compared to every other civilization around the same time Muhammad's running around that have normal ages, what you and I
Yep.
would consider normal?
Yeah, that's an issue. She mentions 12. She mentions 12. She's, a few hundred years ago, they were marrying at 12. That was actually very common. And so you can listen to her reasoning here. She's like, if just a few hundred years ago it was 12, then, I mean, if you go further back than that, then they're just going to be marrying kids all over the place. So you're pointing out, in reality, average ages, and you end up with, when you check the average ages and so on. And I'm saying this because this gets completely misrepresented by like the Hikikachu crowd. They seem to think that if you go back a few hundred years, everyone's marrying 7 and 8 and 9-year-olds and so on. No. So what you have is in Christianity and Judaism, the tendency was, whether it's canon law or the rabbis and so on, 12 was set as kind of a minimum age. And it would be a combination of puberty and the age of 12 that were sort of the baseline. Don't talk about it before then. You're not dealing with it. You're not dealing with it before then. In other words, if a girl got precocious puberty at, let's say, 7, that doesn't mean you jump on it. You still got to wait till she's at least 12. And if a girl hits 12 and she hasn't gone through puberty, they would wait till she's gone through puberty and so on. So you had these kind of minimums, but that doesn't mean that everyone's just pouncing on them as soon as they turn 12 and they've gone through puberty. They're not just pouncing on them. There's just people waited. It wasn't this, hey, old enough to bleed, old enough to breed mentality, jump on her and so on. Islam, as you pointed, Islam is like this outlier. It's just, no, you're not waiting till 12. You're not waiting till 10. You're not waiting till anything. And you're not waiting for puberty. You're not waiting for any of that. You're basically waiting till the girl is, you're not going to crush her by having sex, and you're not going to completely rip her body open when you have sex with her. That's what they're waiting for. And that's what Rosy is defending here, even though she probably doesn't realize what she's defending. Extreme cultural relativism. We're not talking about minor issues here. We're talking about major moral issues. Should you act in the best interest of the safety of a little girl? You're saying that is completely up to the culture. If a culture wants to gangbang 5-year-olds, and if everyone wants to think it's fine, you have to say it's totally fine. Are you serious? Is that your position? Because that's what you're saying in this video, and you're saying it in a completely arrogant and condescending fashion, that you're acting like anyone who could possibly disagree with you is like an idiot or a monster.
It's
and you're the one defending child marriage to prepubescent girls.
Let's say that by the age of 10, a young girl knows how to pick berries. She knows how to cook and clean the animals that are being hunted and brought. And there's a young boy by the age of, we'll go with 13, or could be 16. Doesn't matter.
54?
This young boy, he already learned how to go and hunt, and he already learned how to build a little shelter out of wood and all this stuff, right?
Yeah. She's saying, imagine you had a young boy who's 54, and he sees this 9-year-old who's already learned how to pick berries. Should he bang her? Yes. That's what she said.
So the implication would be, based on this analogy, that we should just not judge Muhammad because he was just a product of his time and environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and very simple. A litmus test with other cultures. Just go to any anthropologist, ask them what was the minimum age. The average age was around 16 to 20.
How long should they wait? So I would say, again, they should wait until they are both physically adults. Should wait until they're both physically adults.
Racist.
So if you were from another culture, and if you came upon them and they didn't know anything about this, and you could give them some information, guys, it's way safer for your wife if you wait until she's grown. And according to Rosy, it would be totally wrong to give them that information about something that could save lives and save their babies and things like that.
She's 10. He's
54.
We'll say 15. He's 15, right? They're about to get married. Like, she already learned everything that she needs to learn to
Picking
survive
berries.
and
But hasn't reached puberty.
survive with the tribe.
If it's a parallel for
He
Muhammad and
already
Aisha,
learned
she hasn't reached
everything that
puberty.
he needs to learn in order to survive with the tribe. Okay, so they're getting married. Imagine now somebody from the West goes to their woods and is like, no, this marriage cannot happen. Everybody's like, why? They're ready. Why? No, in America, this is not allowed.
Is that the argument? Notice, Rosy, we already explained to you what a straw man is. Our argument is not, whatever is allowed in America, that has to be imposed in the rest of the world. And in America, our argument is not, hey, this is what we teach in America. Things can be taught in America that are wrong, that are also morally wrong, that need to be corrected. According to you, they can't be corrected because it's a different culture, right? The claim is not, hey, what you're doing is bad because it's not what America teaches. The claim is it's bad. You should not needlessly put prepubescent girls in danger of their safety. You shouldn't do it. And you shouldn't endanger their children by increasing the rates of premature birth and all these other things. You shouldn't do that. It's bad. And so just to be clear, that's what you're actually criticizing. I know it's popular. So, I'll just say everything is America. No, it's not about America.
Just because something is one way where you are at does not mean that they're the same way somewhere else.
I agree.
And that does not give you the right to say, well, this is wrong just because that's your norm.
Well, if it's my norm, then who are you to judge my norm in my culture? Yeah. If I say it's my norm to judge all other cultures and to condemn all other cultures and say America is superior to everyone else and that's my culture, who are you to judge? Stop telling me what to do.
If you're 10 or 12, yeah, you're still in school. You're still playing with dolls. But if you're...
What'd she say? Did she say you're still playing with dolls? Wait a minute.
10 or 12.
Did she just take as a sign of being too immature for marriage? Because she's saying, hey, in America, yeah, it makes sense to not be married to a young girl because she's still in school. Yeah, she said, you're still in school. You're playing with dolls. That's what she just said. Hang on.
Of course, if you play with dolls, that means you're not ready for marriage because you're still a little child, right?
Yeah, that's what she sounds like she's saying. See? And Rosy, this is the problem with going to dumb Dawa sites to learn about Muhammad and Aisha, not going to the sources, because oopsie, you just destroyed your entire case right there by acknowledging that, hey, if you're still a little girl, the kind that's still in school or playing with dolls, you're not ready for marriage. But Aisha, she's something else. In this imaginary tribe, then you already know everything by the time you're 10 or 12, and therefore it's okay to get married there. But if you were in a different culture where you're still clearly a little kid playing with dolls, then it would be wrong.
After a female has her first menstrual cycle, she's technically ready to give birth.
No, she's not.
Wrong!
She is. Oh.
Liar!
Oh, she's not.
Stupid! Rosy, not sure you know this. Puberty is a process. Yes. Puberty is a process that takes years. Just because a girl gets her period does not mean the process of puberty has been completed and that she is a grown woman. It's what you're talking. And by the way, why is she talking about puberty in this? Why is she talking about puberty when we're talking about Muhammad and Aisha? When we're talking about Muhammad and Aisha, we're talking about Muhammad having sex with a girl before puberty. And we're talking about the Quran, Surah 65, verse 4, allowing men to marry, have sex with, divorce, and pass on to the next guy, girls, all before they've reached the age of puberty. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. Notice the chapter heading. Giving one's young children in marriage is permissible. Interesting. Why? By virtue of the statement of Allah. And for those who have no monthly courses, i.e. they are still immature, that's Quran verse 65:4. So for anyone who doesn't know, Surah 65 verse 4 says you can marry, have sex with, and divorce a girl all before she's reached the age of puberty. And the iddah for the girl before puberty, what did Rosy say? Biology said? According to biology, As long as you get your first period, then you're ready to have babies. That's false. That's false. Any medical professional would tell you how dangerous that is. And guys, just why is it perfectly acceptable in the world of dawah to spread information that actually endangers people's lives? It endangers girls' lives. They spread this in their community, and then girls say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm 9 years old, so I can marry this old guy." And it's spread by people like Rosy. But notice the iddah for the girl before puberty is 3 months in the above verse. And then as an example of someone marrying a prepubescent girl, we have narrated Aisha that the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years, i.e. till his death. We'll just go through some of these rapid fire. The marrying of a daughter by her father. 5134, narrated Aisha that the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. We got that. 5158, the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, i.e. till his death. So she was with him until she was 18, and then she was a childless widow for the rest of her life because Muhammad didn't want anyone comparing him with other men later on. 6130, narrated Aisha. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a second. What did Rosy say about dolls? Anyone remember?
Yeah, people in the West, when they are like 9, 10 or something, they still play with dolls. But of course, in other cultures, they are grown up and do grown-up things, so it's no problem for them to get married. Yeah.
Narrated Aisha. Narrated Aisha, this is Bukhari 6130. I used to play with dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. So a bunch of little girls playing with dolls. When Allah's messenger used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves. The little girls would run. Oh, get us away from Muhammad. Smart girls, because he would try to bang you. They used to hide themselves. But the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. Hey, bring those little girls back here. I want the little girls. I want to watch you play with the dolls. Show me how you play with the dolls. But the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. Notice the commentary from Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. The playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden. In other words, any Muslim reading about Aisha playing with dolls is going to think, wait a minute, we're not allowed to play with dolls. Those are images. Those are forbidden. We have the commentary. The playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. Now we're in Sahih Muslim. Prophet married me when I was 6 years old and consummated the marriage with me when I was 9 years old. You also, let's see, it was narrated from Aisha that the Prophet married her when she was 7 years old. You do have some variations in the sources as to when the marriage contract was written. Aisha was so young, she says, it's kind of when I was really, really young, 6 or 7. And she was taken to him as a bride when she was 9 years old. And what's this? She took her dolls with her. But according to Rosy, from Rosy's Korner, the two things that signify you're a little girl not yet ready for marriage are you're playing with dolls or you haven't reached puberty yet. And that's exactly what we find for Aisha. 3482.
I kind of felt better because it looked like Rosy was telling us that Aisha did not play with dolls, which showed that she was mature. Now we're finding out that she did play with dolls. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm still just going to say Allah knows best.
Yeah, that's the approach. The messenger of Allah married her when she was 6 years old, and consummated the marriage with her when she was 9 years old. And he died when she was 18 years old. We have the full timeline. Sunan Abu Dawud, the messenger of Allah married me when I was a girl of 7 years. Suleiman, one of the narrators, said, or 6, and he consummated the marriage when I was a girl of 9. Noticing a pattern here. Lots of stuff about her being 9. The messenger of Allah married me when I was 6 and consummated the marriage with me when I was 9. And I used to play with dolls. History about Tabari Prophet. Married Aisha. The 10th year, blah, 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 blah. 3 years before the emigration, consummated the marriage in Shawwal, 8 months after the emigration. On the day he consummated the marriage with her, she was 9 years old. And of course, everything comes down to Surah 65, verse 4, which was cited in after the chapter heading in Sahih al-Bukhari 5133. Here's the verse. And those of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, so if she's too old to have a monthly menstrual cycle, for them the iddah, prescribed period. So the iddah is if you are going to divorce someone, how long is it before she can marry another guy? Because there would be, anyway, there's this waiting period called the iddah between when you divorce her and when she can marry some other guy. For them, the iddah, prescribed period, if you have doubt about their periods, is 3 months. And for those who have no courses, i.e. they are still immature, these are two girls who are too young to have a monthly menstrual cycle. And Rosy, if you think we're making this up, we know you're not hearing this from the Dawah guys you follow, but if you think we're making this up, look up the commentary of Ibn Kathir. Look up the commentary of Ibn Abbas. Look up the commentary of Tafsir Jalalain. They all agree this is talking about marrying, having sex with, and divorcing and passing on girls all before they have ever had their first monthly period. So that's what this is about. And so if you have married a girl, had sex with her, and you decide to divorce her so you can pass her on to the next guy, the next guy has to wait 3 months before having sex with this prepubescent girl. So notice, a girl, according to Islam, Rosy, which you're defending as beautiful and wonderful and great, a 54-year-old man can have sex with a 6-year-old. He can have sex with a 6-year-old, get bored with her, pass her on. She'll have to wait 3 months, but then the next guy can come along and he can have sex with that 6-year-old, get bored with her, pass her on. A girl could have 5 different husbands before she's even reached puberty. And
It's so
you're
romantic.
defending it, Rosary. It's so romantic. It's so beautiful.
It's so romantic.
It just sends chills up my spine. Of the state of Muslim women, converts, people convert to Islam, and suddenly, instantly get the idea that it's a really good idea to start defending having sex with prepubescent girls. Where are they getting that idea? Because that's what Allah says, and that's what Muhammad did. So Sahih al-Bukhari, number 231, narrated Amr bin Maimun, I heard Sulaiman bin Yasir talking about the clothes soiled with semen. He said, Aisha said, I used to wash it off the clothes of Allah's messenger, and he would go for the salat prayers while water spots were still visible on them.
What is so romantic? Wow.
So romantic.
Go to the one where it says she used her nails to pick, not bury.
Oh, yeah. No, we're not going to go through a bunch of these. Yeah, you have the ones where she says she would scratch it off. You have the ones where she would scrape it off. Here in 232, it says, I used to wash the semen off the clothes of the Prophet, and even then I used to notice more spots on them. So she's just scrubbing off the semen, scratching it off, scraping it off. Muhammad's about to head to the mosque, and she's like, I still see some more spots all over you. Still see some more semen all over you. Isn't this
so romantic?
It's so romantic. I mean, I just said, it just gives me chill. We're about to see this. Matter of fact, this would be a good time to cut over to Rosy and talking about how wonderful this relationship was. But
so beautiful, wow.
Guys. So on the one hand, you've got your child bride, and her main job, as far as keeping house, as Loaves of Bread points out, her main job is scraping, scratching, or washing the semen, the endless supply of semen that's covering Muhammad's garments before he heads to the mosque. But notice, he's wearing the same cloth. She's like, let me scrape all this semen off. Let me try and get it off here. Let me try and scrape it off. Scrape it off. Maybe need some tools here. Let me pull this off. Scratch it off. She's scraping it off. She's washing it off. And what happens? Then Muhammad goes to the mosque in his semen-covered clothes. I mean, she tried scratching it off, and there's some water spots on there. She's always saying, I missed a spot. And then he goes, no, I got to get to the mosque. And he heads over and prays, and then he's hugging it out with all his buddies.
Talk about jizya.
Yeah, I know. This dude's covered in jizya stains and hugging it out with all his buddies. I mean, seriously, guys. Of all the guys in history, you got a semen, the one you choose to be the standard for all cultures is the guy covered in semen who's banging a 9-year-old. I want people to see how bad this is.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome back to another video. So let's get into the facts. And you are more than welcome to look this up
Okay.
I did extensive research on this.
Extensive research.
So
She did it just so everyone knows. She did extensive research. She just told you. All right.
I encourage you to also do some research and also study the love story of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Aisha.
The beloved love story of this 54-year-old man climbing on top of a prepubescent 9-year-old girl.
In the 1700s, the marriage age was 12 years old.
So not 9?
That's only in the 1700s. Mind you, this story of our beloved Prophet and Aisha, may Allah be pleased for her, took place in the 7th century.
It is, oh my God. By the way she is thinking, it sounds like she's going to come to the conclusion that by 3000 BC they were marrying at the age of -30.
Yeah, that's it, right? She's saying here we are, 21st century, and we say 18 or something like this. But in the 1700s they said 12. So do the math. A century before that it would have been 11. Then the century before that 10. Then a century before that. And no, Rosie. As IP and as Rob have pointed out, the average age of marriage was older. What you had was, for many, many centuries, 12 is considered like the starting point. 12 in puberty, that's when things are starting off for marriage purposes. And that's kind of the point we're making. People seem to understand you don't do that. You don't mess with a girl before she's reached puberty. And even if she gets precocious puberty, you still have to wait until she physically matures. So let's not even talk about marriage before the girl is 12. Islam breaks it all. You don't have to wait for puberty. You definitely don't have to wait until she's 12. And what we're saying is there's kind of a wisdom for having, like, don't talk about marriage before this age.
This problem or this question about Aisha's age, may Allah be pleased with her, came to be in the 21st century. If you look back, I'm not sure about the 20th century, but if you look,
she's
people mocking it even in the 1800s.
Yeah. And notice what she's bringing up. Oh, but people weren't criticizing Muhammad for this back in past century. How many people knew about this in centuries past? People aren't reading Sahih al-Bukhari. They didn't have Sahih al-Bukhari. Muslims had Sahih al-Bukhari, and they're not criticizing it, because criticizing Muhammad, you get your head chopped off. Other people aren't criticizing. Other people don't know. Matter of fact, I've said before, when I first heard this, I thought, no, someone made this up. There's no way Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. Come on. He's a famous religious leader. There's no way he had sex with a 9-year-old girl. I didn't believe it for years until I was reading it in Sahih al-Bukhari, and I was like, oh, this is in there. So anyway.
The 19th century. There is no one talking about Aisha's age. May Allah be pleased with her.
No one knew about it.
So let's get into some facts about Aisha.
Oh, we're getting to the facts of our careful research.
So she was actually engaged before she got engaged to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And
therefore it was okay.
This girl,
therefore it's okay.
She was just so smart.
She was
so quick-witted, so passionate. She had a very strong character, and she not only would debate our prophet, but she would debate anyone that lived in her area.
So in her careful research, she has discovered that Aisha would debate anyone in her area.
She was on modern day debates too.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was a great debater. She said she was smart. All right, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
This is Sahih al-Bukhari. 2658, narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The Prophet said, isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man? The women said, yes. He said, this is because of the deficiency of a woman's mind. So women by nature are stupid. And yet Aisha was super smart, great debater. She'd debate anybody. She'd take on all the men. According to Rosy in her careful research.
Actually narrated 2,210 hadiths. She became a scholar and
she narrated so many hadiths.
I don't know what
all these hadiths about washing the semen off Muhammad's clothes. Narrated Aisha 232. I used to wash the semen off the clothes of the prophet. And even then, I used to notice more spots on them. Yes, thank you for preserving this super valuable information for us, Aisha.
Super, super, super intelligent. So in the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, it was a very...
Wait, so he took this super smart girl and then turned her only job into scraping the semen off his clothes? That's kind of a misuse of her awesome brain power.
Yeah, he ruined her.
Yeah.
Tough time for women because women were treated like slaves or property.
Source, Rosy, source.
And Islam made everything better. Yeah.
But our beloved Prophet Muhammad actually changed things when he gave the right to women to be able to decide whether or not they wanted to get married. And
Aisha was asked.
He also gave them the right.
Yeah, he said a virgin's her consent is determined by her silence. In other words, if her father says do this and she doesn't start screaming, then it's her silence is her consent.
He also gave them the right to vote.
Source.
Vote for what exactly?
You familiar with this, AP? So just so you know, AP, 7th century Arabia was a democracy, and but women didn't have the right to vote. And then Muhammad came along and he gave them the right to vote. AP,
yeah.
You familiar with this source?
No.
Source of trust me, bro. Rosy, we're interested in your sources.
What did they vote for? What were they voting for?
Yeah, we want to know, one, what were they voting for? And two, give us your source. Sahih al-Bukhari, what? Sahih Muslim, what? What's the reference here? What's the reference? But let's see, because she's going to say a little more. Watch this.
Which at the time was not allowed.
So women voting at the women voting at the time wasn't allowed. Then there was this big suffrage movement, and then Muhammad gave all these women the right to vote in that 7th century democracy in the Caliphate.
The suffrage movement was actually inspired by Islam. Yeah.
Let's check with an actual witness here. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. You said a bunch of things. Notice I'm going to say something too, but I'll actually give you the source. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. Narrated Ikrimah. Rifa, so that's a dude, divorced his wife, whereupon Abdurrahman bin Az-Zubair al-Qurazi married her. So Rifa divorced her, and then she married another guy. Aisha said that the lady came wearing a green veil and complained to Aisha of her husband and showed her a green spot on her skin caused by beating. It was the habit of the ladies to support each other. Why would the ladies need to support each other when they had the support of Islam and the Muslim community? So when Allah's messenger came, Aisha said, I have not seen any woman suffering as much as the believing women. Look, her skin is greener than her clothes. This woman's skin was green from being beaten by her husband. It was up to the Muslim women to try and support each other and defend each other. Aisha, long story short, because we could go through this. We could go through the entire passage. We've gone through it in previous shows. But long story short, Muhammad rebukes the woman for being a bad wife, not the man for beating her until her skin turned green. Who did Rosy say is basically the smartest woman in Arabia?
Aisha.
Didn't she say she's super duper smart?
Extremely smart.
So Aisha's super duper duper smart. She's so smart, she debates everyone. She's just debating the whole town. She'll go toe to toe with anyone. Aisha, the smartest girl. Keep in mind, she's the smartest girl in a culture where women are intellectually deficient. Their testimony is half as valuable as a man because they're so stupid, according to Muhammad. But Aisha, she's the brainiac of the bunch. And Aisha, super genius girl that she is, in her expert opinion, and who would be a better expert than the smartest woman around, who learned Islam from Muhammad himself as his beloved child bride? Who would be a better authority on the actual status of women in the 7th century than Aisha? What did she say, Rosy? Aisha, the woman you've described as super smart and super loving a relationship, how does she describe what happened to women because of Islam? She said she has not seen any woman suffering as much as the believing women. In other words, pagan women were treated better by their husbands than Muslim women. That's Aisha. What's your source? What's your source on saying that Muslim women were treated so much better than pagan women? Where? What's your source? I'll tell you some horrible lying article on the internet written by some Dawah who lies compulsively in order to convince people like you because he knows you'll believe whatever he says. That's where you got it from. So we're going to Aisha, who, according to you, should be the ideal witness of any trial on what it was actually like. She says one thing, you say the exact opposite, not based on anything you got from Muhammad or Aisha or any of the early Muslim sources, based on something you read in an article by the biggest bunch of liars I've ever seen in my life. And what's amazing is even after hearing this, you'll say, well, who cares what Aisha said? I'm believing this article I read by this liar. That's what Islam has done to you. Interesting.
Favorite part of mine is when Ayesha, may Allah be pleased with
the
her,
other favorite part,
asked our beloved Prophet how much or how he would express his love for her. And he said it was like a strong binding knot.
Like
so
a strong
when you
binding
pull,
knot.
The stronger it gets.
AP, you familiar with this? Oh, my love for him and his love for me is like a knot. I asked him, and he said our love is like a knot, and you pull on it, and it gets even stronger.
That doesn't sound like an authentic story.
Whoa. Yeah, you don't recall that from Bukhari and Muslim and Sunan Abu Dawud and so on?
Nope.
Yeah, no one does. Gotta do it. Letting her slide in a bunch of nonsense, just granting granting nonsense for the sake of it. Let's see. So here is Toronto Dawa, which examines some reliability of some hadiths here. Kind of tiny there, but from that which has become so notice at the top it's the false narration on Aisha asking, "How is your love for me?" to the Prophet. What's that? From that which has become widespread is the following. Once Aisha asked the Prophet, how is your love for me? Like the rope's knot, he replied, indicating that it is strong and secure. And time after time thereafter, she would ask him, how is the knot? And he would reply, in the same condition. End quote. After looking, okay, so they did the research on this because this is circulating for Dawah purposes and whatever article she read, because she obviously didn't get this from Bukhari or anything.
Don't forget, the keyword is extensive research, right?
Yeah, her extensive research, what she found in her extensive research. This gets circulated, and then eventually Muslims will say, "What are you talking about?" So right here, after end quote. After looking, I couldn't find Imam Albani's ruling on its authenticity, but Imam blah, blah, blah mentioned that this narration is false and that all of the narrators between his sheikh and Imam Malik are weak, except for Imam Ash-Shafi, as he mentioned, blah, blah, blah. And some of the routes even have a fabricator, while other routes have unknown narrators, or other routes have different weaknesses, which are severe. Al-Fatani said, it is a false hadith which has in it weak narrators.
Just the language of it sounds very clearly like a fictional narrative of Muhammad, because it just has a thing to it. It just has a, I don't know what you call it, but a vibe to it. It's just that's not how Muhammad actually authentically speaks. But it's very interesting that this is one of her favorite things. This just shows that she doesn't actually research. She just
what are you talking about? She specifically said over and over again that she did all this research, AP. And so, guys, that is interesting. What amounts to research, according to Rosy, going to some awful website and not bothering to look up anything she's reading? This is why she is like ideal. This is who you want if you're in the Dawah crowd. These are the people you want spreading Islam, and that's why it's become so popular on TikTok and so on. Just get someone like this, mindlessly agree with anything they say, and then they'll spread it to their followers, and it never crosses anyone's mind to look up anything. That's how Islam spreads.
How beautiful. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with.
This actually makes me sick. I don't know. This is just.
It's disgusting, right? It's absolutely disgusting.
This is too much. I mean, her being
She's
her
glorifying. She's
this
glorifying
huge
pedophilia.
romanticizing of this thing. Like,
End of the day, these are people who are like glorifying pedophilia and saying it's the most wonderful thing ever.
Before our beloved prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed, his final words were,
His final words.
treat women with kindness. Treat
Oh my
women
God.
with kindness. Have
What?
fear of Allah in relation to them, and
Says
make
who?
sure you
What are you
want well for them.
Who
How
says that?
beautiful is that?
How beautiful is
I
that?
think
How beautiful is that? Those were Muhammad's last words. Did you know that? They were Muhammad's last words.
Where in the world did she read this? Because
I will show you. I will show you Muhammad's last words, AP. You ready?
I read a completely different narrative of what his final words.
I
were.
will refute you. I will destroy you right now. You're saying you read a completely
Okay.
different account?
Go ahead.
Prepare to be wrecked, AP. Here you go. Islam Q&A. So this is a Muslim scholars website. Islam Q&A. Question: what were the last words of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, before he bade farewell to this world? So here, AP, you're about to be destroyed because you're questioning whether those were actually Muhammad's last words. Now, there are some disputes about what his last words were, but they go through all the options here. We'll sort of speed through this. Praise be to Allah. The last words of the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, before he bade farewell to this world were, Allah with the higher companions. Okay. Interesting. So not that. The last words of the Prophet. So Maghazi in his Sahih, the last words of the Prophet. What I'm reading, I'll put kind of at the top here. So, because I'm going to kind of skim through this. The last words of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, were where he quoted the hadith of Aisha, who said, when the Prophet was healthy, he used to say, no soul of a prophet is taken until he has been shown his place in paradise, and then he is given the choice. All right. When death approached him, his head was on my thigh. He became unconscious and then recovered consciousness. He then looked at the ceiling of the house and said, "Oh Allah, with the highest companions." I said to myself, he is not going to choose to stay with us. Then I understood what he meant. The last words he spoke were, "Oh Allah, with the highest companions." That's interesting. But we have some competition. So now you're going to get where he starts talking about women. Narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. There was a report narrated by Ahmed from the Hadith, blah, 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 who said that the last words of the Prophet were, expel the Jews of the Hijaz and the Najran from the Arabian Peninsula. That's interesting. So get rid that's weird. And know that the most evil of people are those who took the graves of their prophets as places of worship. So that's a criticism of Christians and Jews. So those were his last words, calling to expel Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula. Let's go a little farther. The last words that the Messenger of Allah spoke were the prayer, and fear Allah with regard to those whom your right hands possess. Fear Allah with regard to those. So these are your slave girls. This was classed as Sahih by Al-Albani. Anything else? What's this one? Note, blah, blah, blah. Said the reason why these, oh Allah, higher companions, last words. Darn. Okay, well. All right, AP. It seems like Islam QA has not confirmed what Rosy said. So I'm not sure who we're supposed to go with here, Rosy or the Islamic scholars.
Obviously, Rosy is a
Rosy.
better authority than Islam
she
QA.
did all this. She did all this research. So she must know what she's talking about. All right, we definitely want to wrap up in the next couple minutes. So just watch a little bit more of this. Definitely won't get to all this.
Everybody, welcome back
to
another video. Please, allow that time for new converts or announcement, kind of. And this is for the Muslims.
Where were we?
Can love me.
Amateur.
Fear of Allah in relation to them, and may always say, Aisha. May Allah be pleased with Before our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed, his final words.
His last words, which we just read.
Treat women with kindness. Treat women with kindness.
His last words before he died, according to this website, are
fear of Allah in relation to them, and make sure you want well for them. How beautiful is that? I think that out of all of the stories that I have read, which I have a lot more to read still, but I think this is one of my favorite stories. And I pray that Allah may give me a love one day when the time is right. He gives me somebody who can love me the way that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, loved Aisha.
You carrying that? I want a relationship like the beautiful, loving relationship between a 54-year-old man and a 9-year-old girl. It's a little too late for that, Rosie. You're a little too old.
So from the way that Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, describes their beautiful love story.
Beautiful love story.
To me, there is no way that she could have been forced to marry our beloved prophet.
No, she was completely willing when the marriage was arranged when she was a 6-year-old. She was, there's no way she was forced into that. She definitely was in full, she definitely had her full adult cognitive faculties, and she decided when it was arranged by her father, when her marriage was arranged by her father with Muhammad, she wasn't forced into anything. No, she was free to walk away. There's no way her dad, who beat her all the time, would have just beaten her and told her to do what he wants.
Isn't it also telling that she had severe alopecia and lost all her hair, according to some hadith? If she lost all her hair, alopecia is often brought on by high stress levels. Yeah. So as a 6-year-old, knowing what sort of a relationship you're going to, or not part knowing, having extreme stress, losing all her hair, obviously that also is fairly telling to her sort of mental state.
Yeah, so for anyone who's not familiar with what we're talking about, there's the sources, and this may actually have played a role in even why people are why Muhammad was waiting to consummate the marriage, but her hair fell out at some point, and so it says she got sick and her hair fell out, but that can just be the result of stress. In other words, she could have been actually panicking to the point of her hair falling out. Based on her marriage with this guy. Keep in mind that there is something definitely creepy, everyone, in all of this, with Muhammad saying that, Aisha is his favorite and he just wanted to be with Aisha over and over again. We see the same thing with Muhammad's other companions, and that when one of his followers came to him and said, "Hey, I'm getting married," Muhammad said, "Hey, who are you marrying?" And he said, "I'm marrying an adult woman." And Muhammad said, "What? Why don't you like the virgins?" and fondling them. And so there's something that he regarded as superior about a little girl in all of this. And Rosy loves it. Rosy says, "Oh, why can't I have that? That would be great."
No needing rescue. It was simply a beautiful love story. I truly enjoyed this story. And before I end this video, I wanted to make this announcement, kind of. And this is for the Muslim community. I have been receiving so many comments. There are lots and lots of beautiful comments, which I truly appreciate. And there have been some comments that have not.
Oh, anyway.
Has she been getting marriage proposals from Muslims?
Yeah, well, here she's complaining, which we see in some of the other videos of the TikTok reverts. She complains that Muslims are basically telling her what to do, and she's getting lots of criticism. She's like, "Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Why are you wearing makeup?" And they're telling her what to do.
You chose the wrong religion if you're so bothered by that.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and cut that off there. All right, guys, we've been going 4 hours. There are still a bunch of super chats. There's no way we're going to go through these because, we've got some. I don't want this to be a 6-hour live stream. 4 hours. 4 hours is longer than we wanted. Guys,
AP live streams reads all the super chats. Atheist David Wood live streams says there is no time left. Christian, draw your own conclusions.
AP doesn't care. Despite everything that pours out of her mouth, imagine the high-pitched shrieking that emanates from this little zoomer over the subject of how Western civilization is purely evil, oppressive, sexist, patriarchal, rape culture to be dismantled. Yeah, again, I haven't seen anything from her except these 2 videos, so I would wonder if in her other video she's critical of other cultures. That would be one of life's great mysteries. All right, any final thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I think that.
Go ahead.
I think that at the very least, she should be exposed to feminist Muslims themselves from the East who are actually trying to undo what she is trying to promote. Because I know that we're doing Islamic polemics, and like, I guess the situation would be ideal if people would just leave Islam because it's awful, but in reality that's not going to happen overnight. So until then, it would be best if that we leaned into, like, trying to expose or expose this sort of a reaction to people who are actually trying to undo it, who are within the paradigm. Because looking outside that paradigm, we can try and say, yeah, like, this is wrong, etc. But we really need to have somebody inside the paradigm saying, yeah, this is also wrong, to try and reduce the effects of these terrible doctrines as fast as possible.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason for she started off saying, "Oh, and why do people talk about this? Why is this even an issue?" One of the reasons for criticizing child marriage in Islam is so that enough Muslims become embarrassed by it, so that they make the changes, and so that this becomes not a thing anymore. But the problem is as fast as we're trying to expose this, so that you can have people who say, "Okay, guys, we need to stop this stuff, and it needs to stop in Yemen, and we need to get past this." Even if they wanted to be some sort of relativist, even if they wanted to avoid presentism and judging the past by the standards, you could say, "Okay, guys, we're just going to let everyone slide before them, but right now we have greater knowledge and we know that this is actually bad for girls, so we need to stop it." I'm just saying, as fast as we're exposing it, they're defending it.
Muslims, you can embarrass the Western Muslims, but the Eastern Muslims will not be embarrassed by this. So the best way to do it is to have the people who have been actually affected by it, and it's not that they're embarrassed by it, but they're actually hurt by it, like very physically very hurt by it, and they're trying to undo it from their own angle. So either way works, but it would be great to see it basically abolished. So for both tactics are best. This kind of promotion of Rosie's is inappropriate no matter which way you go. From within the paradigm, from without the paradigm, it needs to go. It needs to stop.
Yeah, so guys need to be blasting away when people are making videos defending child marriage, because at the end of the day, we're trying to fix a problem that affects young girls, and this is just sick stuff. And not just young girls. I mean, as long as people notice, you can have pedophiles. You can have a pedophile. Generally, that pedophile has to keep it like quiet. You can't tell everyone that you're a pedophile. You're gonna go to jail or just get beaten or something like that. But anyway, people aren't just going to let you run around being a pedophile. Islam just thinks it's completely okay. So you can't let that one slide. AP, any final thoughts here?
I mean, as said, I was initially...
What's up with your hair, dude? I'm not talking to you. He tried to do his hair exactly like you, AP, to copy you.
I just had a shower. I freshened up.
And now your hair looks exactly like AP's.
I needed to go pick some berries and sip on some, and then also have a shower. Welcome to Austin,
initially, I had respect for her and thought, yeah, okay, everything seems cool. It seems all nice. But then that part came in where she started being totally romantic about the child marriage, the pedophilia, and all of that. And I don't know how to, after that part, still respect her in any way. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, and
I guess that's really telling of cognitive dissonance. You either lean into it and go, oh, you know what, it's actually acceptable, or you lean away from it and go, you know what, this is actually disgusting. I don't think it's real or realistic.
Yeah, and think about how really sick and evil this is, in that if you're a Muslim man and you really want to marry a little girl and you want to encourage other people, what do? Hey guys, watch this video by Rosy. She says it's great. Hey, my friend. Yeah, you got a young daughter? I want you to watch this video with your young daughter, and then I'm going to have a proposal for you afterwards. It's like it's making it acceptable within the community. I mean, it's already acceptable. We're trying to make it less acceptable. They're trying to make it more acceptable and just totally normal.
Exactly.
That is creepy, evil stuff. So, Rosy, I don't think you set out with bad intentions or anything here, but I think you need to be thinking about your religion. So you converted to Islam. I'm sure you have some reasons. Maybe we'll go through those reasons. Rosy, side note, you're welcome to join us here. You're welcome to join us during a live stream. and discuss this. And you may be thinking, I'm new. I just, my research is only a couple of articles or something like that. Fine. You can bring any Muslim scholar on the planet, your favorite Muslim scholar, bring him with you, and we'll all have a big discussion about this. And we can get to the bottom of this. Happy to have that discussion with you. But so based on what we've seen, your level of research is going to horrible articles by lying Dawagandists and then not researching anything they're telling you even slightly or critically. And this is what you get. And if you go that route, what's the end result? You'll be on YouTube defending child marriage and promoting child marriage and getting young girls to think that it's a great thing to do, that being a little girl married to some creepy old Heaven's Gate looking dude is a good idea. And that's just sad.
Sit back, review what you are doing.
Reevaluate your life's choices is what we're saying. Go ahead.
Have a look at what in the world you are promoting and stop doing these ridiculous things that you might regret in the future when you wake up to what kind of a horrible worldview it is that you are justifying here and normalizing.
Yeah, do you really want to go down in history as the world's second most important leading defender of pedophilia after Daniel Hukikachu? Is that what you want? Hey, Rob, any final thoughts? Because you were absent when I asked for final thoughts.
No. I was going to say something, but it was going to be pretty mean.
Yeah.
It was in. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I started thinking we're going to be nice, but yeah, I agree with AP. This is bad. This is bad stuff. Encouraging this stuff. This is sick stuff.
Okay. Let me just cushion it. I am disappointed in her choice to go in this direction. Initially, so Nicole and I actually did engage with her on my channel, 4 months ago, something like that. Back then, she was more reasonable, even though it was completely bonkers, but more reasonable. For her to go down this trajectory, her extensive research, which, as Nicole just pointed out a moment ago, can lead to a lot of harm, especially for children. I'm bringing it back, and I mean this with all due respect, I'm bringing this back to the reason why she converted, and that is, according to her testimony, it's the passing of a child. Now, that's horrible. I'm not against the comfort that she was given with respect to her friend that introduced that particular hadith and all that. But what I was going to say was, don't use, now in light of all this, don't use Islam as a scapegoat to find comfort for the passing of your child. Initially, I was debating whether to say that, but I'm also thinking about the welfare of children in this context, and for her to just be so blasé about it, this romanticizing about Muhammad also kissing the same spot of the cup as Ayesha did, it's sick. I mean, as a mother, she should know better. I mean, obviously, her child has passed, but either way, she became a mom, and she should know better.
Yep. And I think that's a good way to wrap up again, guys. Sorry I didn't get to... we normally try to go through all or as many as we can of the super chats, but towards, after we went through the first video, it was kind of go through all the super chats or get through that second video. And I didn't want to do a second show on this, but I wanted to show that she is actually glorifying and praising this, and that's bad. And you just have to wonder why so many people who go into Dawa, I mean, remember Sneeko, when it was brought up, he said, yeah, child marriage, gross, evil. And then it was just it was a month or two later after he became a Muslim. Then, after rethinking this and doing my research, I've decided that there's nothing wrong with child marriage. It's like part of the initiation. Hey, now you're a Muslim. Now you worship the one true God, Allah. What now? Oh, well, now you start defending child marriage. What is it?
David, do you want to bridge that? You want to bridge that to the gospel where we have Jesus telling a 12-year-old girl, get up, little lamb?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Talitha Kum is the Aramaic.
Yep, calls her little girl, not a fully grown woman capable of being married.
Well, little lamb, even to really soften it even further than just little girl, it's a lamb, is the pure and innocent, that sort of an imagery.
Yeah, and for the Hikikachu crowd, she's like a grandmother. Not joking. Not joking.
No.
Yeah, you're marrying this, this
Remember,
40-year-old.
David.
By the time the 4-year-old has a kid, then that 4-year-old is 5. She got a baby now, and so she's a mom. And then by the time she's 10, she's a grandma.
In David's defense, he's using log scales over here, right? The natural log system. So
I'm using the Daniel log system, the Daniel Hakika log system. All right, everyone. Well, there's never been a better time to close out with this song.
Ain't gonna follow no child molester, sex offender, prophet pretender. Ain't gonna follow no child molester.
Islam's not for me. Islam's not for me.
Islam's not
for me.
Catch y'all next time.